anything where you feel connected to yourself and where you can take your mind off of everything and just like focus on one thing, that is still a spiritual practice. It doesn't have to be prayer. You know what I mean? So if for someone that's literally like tennis and they're just like focused in and they're like really just like feeling in tune with themselves and their body and they can feel everything and it makes them happy, that's enough.
Yeah, I completely agree. I was actually just on call with a hypnotist, actually, right? His name's James Malone, and you could find his you could find the video that I have with him. I'll post it right here. But I was talking to him, and he described hypnosis in the same way, actually. He says, when you think of hypnosis, you normally think of it as, I could make you bark like a dog or something like that.
Right.
But yeah, yeah, but his type of hypnosis, his is based off helping people in their daily lives, right? So let's say you're struggling with smoking or overeating or things like that, and you want to help yourself. He takes you through a hypnosis process, which is very similar to mindfulness, where you literally just bring yourself in a sense of oneness and you sort of get connected with yourself and you come to a realization of this is why I want to quit. This is how I feel right now as a smoker. I don't feel the way that I want to feel. And to get to this place, I need to be in this sort of mindfulness slash hypnosis state. So a big conversation that we have, that we had that I thought was really interesting. I'd want to share this with you. Do you
Yeah,
think that in our society we don't do a great job at confronting our own feelings? And do you feel like we sort of run away from our feelings whenever we see a distraction?
100%. I think
Mm,
that's honestly just human nature because our feelings don't feel good. I mean, just innately, we don't want to do things that don't feel good. We want to
mhm.
go to what feels good. So yeah, I definitely think it's a huge problem. And in today's world, we have a distraction literally at every turn. We have our
It's true.
phones. We can literally do anything we want. So it's even worse in our day and age. Um, yeah, 100%.
So, so what would you think? Because I mean, I completely agree. I think there's one thing that really gets me. It's if you were to articulate to somebody why they shouldn't do that, why they should instead of running away from their problems. And by running away, I don't mean physically running away. I mean mentally running away and saying, you know what, I don't have the ability to handle this right now. How could you tell somebody, or what would be your reasoning for somebody to actually confront their feelings and come together and understand how they're feeling in that present moment?
The reason is because even if you run away from it, it's actually not going anywhere. It'll be
Mm,
back when you get done procrastinating, or it'll just build up and you'll and just come out in other ways, whether that is literally like your body deteriorating or you blowing up one day on someone and just like being really angry or sad, depression, like it comes out. If you don't deal with it head on, it just oozes out in other ways. So I would say that's the reason. And also, I mean, I think people have to look at problems differently or their emotions differently because it's really the feeling that causes people to flee because they don't want to feel things.
yeah.
But as I always say, there's no such thing as a negative emotion. Your emotions are just messages like, okay, why are you sad? There's a reason, and your body's trying to tell you something, and then you can deal with it. And I mean, you may still be sad, but at the end of the day, there's a lesson here. So I think if everyone could just see emotions as neutral and as helpers, then they won't feel as bad about it.
Yeah, I think something that's really interesting about mindfulness is that people the people who do mindfulness and the experts, they actually encourage you to be curious instead of reacting. So, the first imagine in a biological sense, you're in the woods and you hear a sound. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to panic, right? Because you're like, oh, this could be an animal, this could kill me, right?
Yeah.
Anything like that. But then once you realize that it's not something to be threatened by, and it's something that, it's not an animal, maybe it's just, rustling in the leaves or whatever. The next natural reaction that we have is actually to be curious, to be like, what was that? So that the next time that I experience this, I don't have to go through this fear again, right? Maybe the next time I hear rustling in the woods, then, or this exact rustling in the woods, then I know that it's not going to be a bear
That's
trying
a
to
good
take me
point.
down. So I think it's super interesting how in mindfulness, they tell you, when you experience stress, for example, in your daily life, the first reaction is to panic. It's the same thing, right? You experience this panic sense, and mindfulness essentially tells you to go to the next step. It essentially tells you to calm down, stop worrying, and move on to the next step. And I think that's a great part of not being able to distract yourself. Because if you distract yourself a little bit, then you're still going to act in that panic state and you never move on to the next stage.
Yeah, I think so. I agree 100%. And I like the way you put it about the you hear the noise in the woods, and then like
Mhm.
if you hear the same one again, then you know it's like not that bad. So yeah, doing it, just try it once. It's never going to be that bad again. A lot of the time, you know.
Yeah, exactly. And I think especially with stress, because for stress and anxiety, our culture is pretty riddled with that. And I think the best thing to do about it, honestly, is to realize that there's really no use in being stressed out, right? Like, what's the benefit of being stressed out? You think worse,
Hmm.
your body starts, using its resources so much quicker than you expect it to, and you start getting tired. You end up going on, like, a high and a low, and also, you start feeling pretty awful. So I think so many people try to, you know, they get stressed, but they don't realize that it's not even useful to be stressed at all.
Yeah, it's not useful, and I think people don't know how to not be stressed. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. People don't really know how to confront it. That's the big problem, and I
Right.
think that's something that, we could discuss on this, and it's, when you experience stress, I think the first reaction is to go to one of those distractors because it's so easy, right? Oh, I'm stressed, let me drink, right? Like, it could take you right out of that mind state so quickly. But I think mindfulness is such a great way to get out of that stressful state and at the same time, be within yourself and to completely understand yourself.
Yeah, I agree. Um, I guess the issue there is that the drinking is quicker sometimes until like you really get the hang of it. But I 100%, it's way better of a way. And at that point, you're actually dealing with it, dealing with the stress. So
Yeah. I think so. When you actually get, like, getting back to spirituality and things like that, do you feel that when you're stressed, the a great way to actually deal with that is through a sort of spiritual sense, by sort of saying to yourself, this is all like God's doing and there's all a plan that's here? Or do you think that God is sort of detached from that and it's not as useful?
I don't think that he's causing stress. I mean, that's me.
Mhm.
I'm causing my stress.
Yeah.
So um if I feel stressed, I may pray about like whatever it is that's bothering me, but ultimately, I know it's my job to deal with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
Okay. So do you sort of feel like do you feel like there's sort of a plan that's laid out for you? Sort of, when somebody goes to comfort somebody, and for example, I do this all the time, there's a tendency to say it will get better. It will get better. But that's just, somebody could say that's true, it will get better, or somebody could also say that's just wishful thinking.
yeah,
So part of the spiritual sense is saying, it will get better because God has a path laid out for you and things like that. So do you believe that that's a great way to calm you down, especially in times of stress?
um, I don't think that that's how I would speak with someone, um,
Mhm.
because I think, yeah, like people might have that viewpoint, what you just said, like you're just saying that type of thing.
Yeah.
Um, but it can get better. It can always get better. Like the thing is, like, whatever we're given in life, or things that happen to us that may be our fault, and there's things that happen that aren't our fault. Um, we have a choice to let it get the best of us, or we can use it as a stepping stone at some point and make us better. So when I say that we have like a path, I do think that we all have a purpose. And I think that the universe can use things for our highest good at all times, but it's definitely up to us personally to make good choices, and just
Yeah.
get out of victim mentality and like, let's go. Okay, I'm ready to start healing. I'm ready to get over this. I'm ready to feel better. So, I mean,
So,
definitely things can get worse. They can,
mhm,
but
yeah.
it's also, we do have a say. We do have some power over things.
So there's a sort of I know you just touched on it, but when you go through the problems of, I don't really have a purpose, right? Like I'm not sure what that purpose is. Maybe God has it set out for me, but at the same time, I really don't know if I have a purpose. What do you suggest for those people who sort of, you know, they don't if they since they don't really have an aim for their lives, they just sort of feel like they're wandering aimlessly and don't really have a place for them to go.
I think starting with following the things that genuinely make you happy,
Hmm.
knowing what that is, because there was a point in my life where I couldn't even answer that. What makes me happy? And I would
I
like
think
sit
we all
there
have
like
that, yeah.
I couldn't think of anything. So
Mhm.
you start by getting to know yourself, and then you can move on from there, and um, just keep honing in on things. But you have to know yourself first, at least somewhat, to even reach that point of like feeling like what your purpose is.